Hirsch, we're talking about how to detect your ideal client. It presumes we know who the ideal client is.
Yes, yes. Hello, Nancy.
Right.
It does presume that we know who the client is, and I think on some level we all do. It's just we're not necessarily using the tools that are out there the way that suits our personality best. I think that there's a lot of we're using a lot of tech, we're using a lot of shortcuts, what we hope are shortcuts. But if we sit down and really, really think about who is that ideal person and how do they fit us, then we might choose a tactic that is appropriate for them. And I think there's a disconnect between the tactics that we're seeing employed and the kinds of matches that truly need to be made. And as you mentioned in your post, it risks becoming a numbers game. It's just okay. It really doesn't matter how I try to do it. I'll just send out 100,000 emails, and I'm bound to get a client out of it in the final analysis.
Yeah, it saddens me, Hirsch, that so many people play the numbers game in sales. And the numbers game, as you just said, and as I indicated, is about quantity, throwing a bunch of spaghetti against the wall and hoping something will stick. And at any given time, according to Chet Holmes, who a marvelous sales trainer and coach, he said that at any given time, only 2 to 3% of the population who is eligible for your product or service is actually looking to buy. And that means 97% or more are not in a position and not ready to buy. Some of them don't even know that this is an issue yet. That's about 30% of the population. It's there, like they're here on social media, but they don't know that they need a strategy, and hence they're not even looking for someone to help them with that strategy. Another 30%, it is obvious to them that there's a problem going on, and they may actually be looking for a solution. But again, they're in a kind of exploratory stage, let's call it. There is another 7% who have done enough research at this point that they know that if something good came up, they should snag it. Hence, some of these holiday sales that are taking place currently may indeed entice them. But again, so if you're taking addition notes, that's 67% plus 3%, 70%. That leaves 30% who honestly you can never reach. And so you're putting a lot of effort into folks who don't matter. Sales is a numbers game. It's exhausting. As you know, Hirsch, I teach sales as a numbers game, but when you number your buyers 2, 4, 6, and 8, and those numbers represent the number of contacts or touch points needed before a person can make up their mind. So when you use the number of your buyer, now sales becomes much easier. Hence, it really does start with who is your ideal client. Do you know their number? Have you zoned in on their number?
That's great. The number thing, the 2468 numbers, personality numbers, it really set something off as you were speaking, which was, do they know? Does your customer know who they are? Because many times we have encountered this in our travels where the customer or prospective customer is actually confused about who they are. That obviously on some level can be a good fit for me because I help them achieve clarity around their personal brand. But the challenge may be that they are so kind of all over the place that they can't possibly recognize the solution because they don't clearly understand themselves or their problem. And when you or I come across somebody like that, can be very frustrating because we want to help them, but we may not be able to. They may not be ready yet. But do we think about that as a seller? Do we think, okay, I know who I need to work with. How well does the person I need to work with know themselves?
So, what you're actually saying, if I can rephrase it, at least from my perspective, what I'm hearing is that the individual, your buyer, your potential customer, they don't know what the problem is. They have misdefined it. They know that something bothers them. It's like, there's an itch on my back somewhere. And if you have a spouse, or you've had a roommate, or even a parent as a child, and you've asked them to scratch your back, you know that they don't find exactly the right place immediately, right?
Right.
And you have to give directions. No, a little bit more to the right. No, to the center. And so you're trying to instruct them where the itch is so that they can scratch it for you. Well, our prospects have an itch, and they may have misdefined it. And when you go to scratch what they have defined as the itch, it's not going to solve the problem. But here's the good news. You are an expert in problems, in the kind of problem you solve. Hence, that's why you want to help explore with your prospect, what exactly is that problem? How can I define that itch so that it can be scratched and I can get relief?
Yeah. And that is why I have started to focus on goals rather than problems. So if I focus on my prospective clients' goals, what do you want to achieve? Where do you want to be in a year? Where do you see yourself going in the best case scenario? Then we can work backward and find out if there's a block, because that's where I may say, well, your personal brand could help you connect with this audience that you're now not connecting with, because they would have a clearer view of how you're going to solve their problem and so forth. But whatever they thought the problem was is only relevant insofar as it's a rate limiting step for them getting to their goal. So we got to work backward from the goal instead of obsessing about what we think might be the problem.
And if I can add, because this is a really important point, so, listener, take notes right now, because the goal is a really important thing. Not only that you talk about the goal, but you don't need to phrase what you do as a name. You see, names are limiting. And so as soon as I tell you I have a 12-week program with 3 components and we're going to spend X, Y, you know what? Your customer, your prospect could care less about the length of time, the modules we're going to go over. You see, they are goal directed, and you need to be goal directed. We're going to take time together. And as a result, and they want to know the result, you're going to experience these benefits, because that's what people purchase. They purchase that result. They don't purchase a 12-week program, or a 3-month package, or however you term what you do. And guess what? They don't purchase sales psychology. They don't care about the fact I'm a sales psychologist. What the heck does that mean? No, but if I can help them generate warm leads and convert them into clients, and they now can pick and choose who they're going to work with, they want that result.
Yeah, that's right. They aren't, and it's funny because here we are in this end of the business, and we're saying, well, look, your personal brand builder is not necessarily what you're looking for. You don't come to me saying, I need somebody to build a brand. They could say, that's great. It's great that you're a brand builder. I'll call you when I need to build a brand. Right now, I need to break through to my target audience, and I need them to see why I'm better than everybody else at what I do. So it's like,
and know that, Hirsch, the answer is, if your brand is on point, that your client, your prospect, is going to raise their hand and say, it's me, call on me.
Right. And I think that the clarity issue is the first issue, but it is only the first. It is only part of the picture. of knowing your ideal client.
Yeah.
What are some other things, Nancy, that that you look for when helping someone nail down their persona of their ideal buyer?
Well, as you know, Hirsch, I have a very comprehensive program for identifying the buyer persona. And I usually start off by asking you to tell me, oh, 3, 4, 5 of the favorite people to work with, either currently or in the past. And why is that? Because don't you want to work with more of your favorite people? So rather than approach it theoretically and in terms of, some kind of descriptive words, demographics, let's find out the essence of that person you love to work with. What do they like energetically as a personality? Let's create your buyer persona around that. And so I always start by understanding, again, 2, 4, 6, 8, what's the combination? Because although there are these 4 personality types, your ideal prospect is a combination of 2, possibly 3 of those 4 types. You want not 100% of a particular type. You want, 70% of this, 20% of that, and 10% of the next one. And now you're talking my ideal prospect. So this is why, Hirsch, I start off by identifying and getting that sweet spot of who do you like to work with.
Yeah, and I should point out that it's not just who you like to work with or who your ideal uh, buyer persona is. It's all the people in your sphere who are the best people to partner with, who are the
Mm.
best people to hire as employees, who are your ideal collaborators and co-event creators. All of these people that come into your life all fit into the personality types you've set and described through the likability. And every time we are seeking a connection and seeking to invest in a relationship, it helps to know what kind of people we want to work with. And it isn't something that I think is clear to the naked eye.
No, it isn't. And again, it's because the majority of the population is, a composite of 2 or 3 styles. Hence, that's why it's important to have like a reading. And really, that's what it is. Like, we need a formula.
Yeah.
And like I said, 70% of this style, not all of it, but 70%. Well, which 70%, right? And which 20% and which 10%? Because that's kind of what I do in terms of identifying the buyer persona. And then we go on, Hirsch, to look at what's called psychographics, like what are their motivations, what are their desires, what are their pain points, what are their fears, all this kind of stuff, so that it then leads you towards the platform where you want to find this person and the messaging of what will attract them, so they know, wow, you get me and we're alike.
Yeah. It's very much a dating service for business. Very much so, in that we create these profiles often on LinkedIn or everywhere else. We have all these profiles that describe who we are. Um, in many cases, we hew pretty close to the truth, but some of us also exaggerate or
Oh,
say we're
yes.
taller than we are or
Oh,
whatever
yes.
whatever it is. And then you meet, and now with AI, which is a whole other thing that can be misleading or simply suggest that we're less creative than we really are. And I think that creates an obstacle. So there's so much to
Yeah.
explore in terms of, and it's fun also in terms of who are our ideal clients and associates, because what's the most valuable thing? Time is the most valuable. So in the end, we think that by shotgunning 100,000 emails and figuring we're going to hit some prospective client or other, is that really as time efficient or cost efficient as focusing on these profiles and personae and saying, who are the real people that I want to work with?
Well said. All right. Well, we're going to end on that note. This has been another edition of Know and Sell Pointers with Dr. Nancy Zaire, the sales whisperer.
And Hirsch Repun, your personal brand builder, saying yes. What was my closer? I was going to say yes to all good things.
That's right. And to your